I'm an across-the-boards species identifier, specializing in birdsong, animal tracking, mushrooms, botany, aquatic life, and minerals. And yet I am not one of the top birders even in the county I live in. Birding is a very serious business. They come from a long tradition, which I know because during the Great Backyard Bird Count in February, I'm often the only person in my county who takes photos, and the only person who posts audio recordings or does bird tracking, which are relatively new things compared to their sport. It has taken me a lot longer to make a video on birdsong than most of those other things. In my upcoming video, A Guide to Bird Tracks and Sign, I say the first thing you notice is just 3 or 4 birds leave all the tracks because they're the ones that spend all their time on the ground. Likewise, there are always 3 or 4 birds calling wherever I am. So instead of trying to learn all the birds in your area from A to Z, you should start with the birds that always seem to be there, and maybe ask, why are those birds always singing? You will notice that during different activities or at different times of the year, birds are silent or making simple, quiet sounds at each other, and at other times the same bird is at the highest place he can find, declaring his territory. Listen to this recording I made on March 1st. So I hear 3 different kinds of calls without having to know what the birds are. First, there's a bird making an angry, non-musical sound. Then there's a bird I hear calling wherever I am. And then a territorial call like a whinny, which happens to be a downy woodpecker. In this second recording, it's the woodpecker making everyday sounds as it goes about its business, with another bird calling in the background. So the 3 birds I always hear in the spring wherever I am are cardinal, Carolina wren, and tufted titmouse. A cardinal song is a series of upward notes that look like commas on an audiograph. Sometimes followed by downward notes. A cardinal's call is just a single note, like a peep. The Carolina wren says 3 notes, cheeburger, cheeburger, cheeburger. Here's one with a cardinal in the background. And sometimes it's reversed. Cheeburger, cheeburger, cheeburger. Often with a brrr sound at the end. Sometimes the call is so fast it sounds like a trill. The other sound a wren often makes is an angry brack, brack, get away from my nest, which is also made by the tufted titmouse. The titmouse's song is a 2-note Peter, Peter, Peter. Many recordings are just these 3 birds. Once you get used to the sound, Other birds chiming in will stand out to you. The fourth bird is the chickadee, which in my area is the Carolina chickadee. His song is chickadee-dee-dee. And his shorter call is a twisting sound like a goldfinch. The American robin's song is a continuous 2 or 3 notes that sounds like, "Here I am, where are you? Here I am, where are you?" Robins make a variety of other sounds, including a high-pitched whinny like that of a woodpecker, that's all on one note. In the fall, when they gather in large numbers, there's a lot of squawking like grackles and starlings do. The phoebe says its name, Phoebe? Bluebirds make a sound I call churbling, which is the best word I can think to describe it. Here's an example mixed with tufted titmouse and pine warbler. The mockingbird's song is unmistakable. It constantly changes to a seemingly endless variety of different sounds, some of which sound like other birds, and some don't sound like birds at all. Mockingbirds also like to be seen. Its lexicon of up to 200 songs is an example of instinctive intelligence, although the bird does choose which songs to give. This is nothing compared to the 1,100 songs of the brown thrasher, however. The brown thrasher sounds like a mockingbird with a sore throat. This amazed me because when it's on the ground thrashing in the leaves, it's either silent or makes its own sounds that belong to its species. Let's divide woodpeckers into 3 kinds of calls. The territorial whinny, which seems to come out of nowhere. The everyday sounds they make while going about their business. And drumming. The pileated woodpecker is the biggest, so his whinny is the loudest and most complex, like a monkey. And the sounds he makes while foraging are the lowest. A downy woodpecker is smaller, so his whinny is higher and shorter. and his everyday calls are a high-pitched chirp. The red-headed woodpecker is often constantly talking to himself, and here is his song. There are birds that like very specific places. Here are two that were introduced from Europe. The house sparrow loves Walmarts and shopping malls. Every Walmart has them. The garden center meets all their needs. As soon as you step into it, you're serenaded by their constant, melodious squawking, which is hard to imitate. I've never seen one in the woods, and I've rarely seen them at neighborhood bird feeders. The second bird you will find at garden centers alongside the house sparrow is the house finch, which dominates neighborhood bird feeders and suburban areas. Its long, complex song has a twist at the end, like twiddly 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 twee. Starlings and grackles, like all blackbirds, started out as unrelated birds that encountered some real migratory blackbirds and have come to have the same color and habits, which is to say they gather in huge mixed flocks in winter and eat crops, and then go their separate ways again. Here's an example of the starling's chattering non-musical sound. The common grackle's name, Quiscalia quiscula, is inspired by its sound. I always hear song sparrows around restaurants and city intersections, even though I also find them in swamps. The song sparrow says 3 notes, followed by a complex warbling. While recording birdsong, you will notice other sounds that come and go, like the high-pitched trill of the chipping sparrow. Or the even faster trill of the pine warbler. This is one of many birds that in my area is heard but not seen. If you drive east to the Pine Barrens or south, they're at every bird feeder, but around here I've never seen one, along with the northern parula and the black and white warbler, which sounds like a squeaky wheel. Nuthatches make a nasal da-da-da-da sound. The white-breasted nuthatch is the biggest and therefore the lowest. The red-breasted nuthatch is higher and more nasal, and The little brown-headed nuthatch is barely a whiny squeak. Other random background calls you will hear are crows, ravens, and blue jays. Blue jays always seem to be angry, although this is our own observational bias. Along with crows, they are the #1 bird that participates in a bird disturbance if there is a snake, owl, or cat. Their call is a nasal yank that becomes increasingly agitated. The sound they make when they're not mad is a very musical song similar to a hermit thrush. Blue jays have been known to imitate hawks. The 3 hawks of the genus Buteo in my area are different in size and call. The red-tailed hawk, which is the biggest, makes a long, drawn-out kia like you hear in Hollywood movies. The red-shouldered hawk has a shorter kia, kia, kia. The broad-winged hawk is the smallest and makes the highest sound. The barred owl's "Who Cooks for You" is often the first bird call people learn. They also give a single hoot, which is what the great horned owl does. The screech owl, our smallest owl, makes a high-pitched sound that doesn't sound much like an owl. If you go to a lake or a swamp, you're almost guaranteed to hear a kingfisher. And the red-winged blackbird's distinctive rattling call. The distinctive low croak of the great blue heron doesn't sound much like a bird at all. Here's a recording of a rookery with the young chicks clacking their bills. The last birds I want to go over make unusual, distinctive sounds. The mourning dove's "oo, hoo, hoo" is unmistakable. As are the night birds, the whippoorwill, and the chuckwill's widow. The killdeer, which lays its eggs on bare ground without a nest, makes a frantic, high-pitched call that becomes increasingly agitated, along with its characteristic broken wing behavior. If you've heard a bird you can't identify, I always upload my recordings to BirdNet, or you can download the Merlin app on your phone for live recording. Here is a sample of other birds I've recorded. Thanks for listening.